Fabulous. Well, hello friends. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jules Zarin. I'm a writer and a longtime bartender and the secretary for the USBG Palm Beach, and I'll be moderating today's interview. We'd love to hear your questions and insights. So if you're on the call with us today, definitely share with our guests in our community by leaving your message in the chat box for us, and we'll make sure to get to them before the end of the interview. And now, without further ado, our very special guest today is Minakshi Singh. She's the co-founder of India's Cocktails and Dreams Speakeasy and the Sidecar, which is currently number 40 on Asia's 50 best bars, the only Indian bar to make it onto the Asia's 50 best bar, and only the second bar from the country to make the cut since the list inception in 2016. So Minakshi, welcome. Thank you for spending your evening with us.
Thank you, Jules. I'm most excited.
We are too. So now you have basically lived and breathed hospitality since you've started working. Could you share your journey with us, how you started, and some of your benchmark moments?
Wow, so it's been a crazy fun journey. I mean, I started about 16, 17 years ago. I was a hotel school graduate. I was learning how to, I was doing the straight-jacketed hospitality management program from New Delhi. And at that time, as usual, like everyone else does, I was looking for a little bit of extra pocket money, and I stumbled upon bartending, and I figured that, oh, this pays double, and I should be doing this. And at that time, there was actually very, very few, I think 1 or 2 women that I knew who had bartended, and I think that is why it was paying double, because I didn't realize at the time I was too young and naive to put it rightly. And I went into the bar, and I enjoyed it so much. I went into it for the fact that it was paying me money, but I think when I came out of it thinking that, oh wow, this is something which is super exciting. I get to interact with people. I'm also a very, very big people person, and I think that's a very baseline of being in hospitality industry. You have to be okay to talking to strangers and getting to know them better, and to be hospitable generally. And I think that came naturally to me, and at that time I didn't know that, but I discovered it as I went along, and I started enjoying working in the bar, doing a lot of private parties. This was the time when legally India wasn't legal in India to bartend for women. And as archaic as it sounds, this is only like 2004, 2005, and this is how bad this scenario was, and I actually didn't know. And I was bartending in private parties, and I was working 14, 16 hours a day, and I was enjoying it so much that I actually started thinking about a career in bartending at that time. And this was still when I was doing my hotel management, and I went and I kept doing that as a part-time thing while pursuing my studies. And when I graduated, I realized at that time that there is no way I can ever get a job in a bar, because A, it's illegal, and B, a lot of people expect you to do a management course and then immediately become a manager, right? So that is how your kind of ladder is in terms of the career. And I wasn't interested in that. I'd done my industrial training. I'd seen the hotels. At that time, it was very simple that you do your hotel management. You go into a 5-star hotel. You become I was told to okay, now you have a pretty face. Get into the front office. Why would you want to go in this? Don't become a chef. Don't become a So it was a very typical very male-dominated industry, as it is still now. Not to say it's not right now, but back then it was far worse. And at that time, I didn't want to do that, and I think it was a tough decision for me to quit, that part of the journey, and actually still bartend. And I was bartending, freelancing, and doing private parties, private events, where it was, I think there was a whole loophole of the legality of women bartending. And that time I met someone who is actually my current business partner, Yangdup Lama, who's also been like a very big sort of almost influence in my career as well. He was already an established bartender, mixologist. He went on to become an author, all of that. And he actually told me that, if you want to bartend, then, you won't be able to bartend legally. You won't be getting a job anywhere. So you can look at getting into the liquor industry, which is also sort of associated industry here. And so I joined a liquor marketing company, an events company, which was working with a lot of liquor marketing firms like Bacardi, Smirnoff, Diageo at that time. They were just about entering India. So it was a very exciting time for the white spirits to actually get into a very, very dark spirit-oriented market. So we were very whiskey and rum and brandy kind of a market. And at that time when Smirnoff and Bacardi came, it was like almost radically new for all of us to see mojitos and cosmopolitans and all of that. And I think I just about entered the scene at the right time, I would say. And I think it worked really well because I worked with them really closely. I worked with Diageo, I worked with Bacardi. This is all good timing, I would say, that I got to work with these people. And then I got absorbed. I got a job offer from Diageo. I worked with them for Captain Morgan Rum, and it was a really, really exciting time. Then I went on to work with Pernod Ricard, again, marketing, trade marketing, sales. But I was always very, very constantly in touch with the trade, So my job profile was on trade. So I was looking at working with bars, restaurants, bartender advocacy programs, training. So my role was always in the middle somewhere where I was this industry person who was working very closely with the, with the bar industry as well. And that is where I think my sort of, truly my heart was at that place. Because I still remember, you asked about the highlight. When I interviewed at Pernod Ricard, and the big shot there who interviewed me asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, someday I'll be owning a bar. I'll have a bar called Cocktails and Dreams. And he said that, you don't want to be in my place. I'm like this, fancy hotshot job, get to travel the world. You don't want to be in my space. And I said, no, I don't want to. I want to have a bar. And I've always wanted that. And I think we got to realize that dream when Young Dup, who was also my mentor, I mentioned, we got talking in about 2008, 2007, is that let's have a bar of our own. And we started an Excel sheet of our costs and, talking to people, what is the real estate cost. And this went on for 3-4 years. And finally in 2012 is when I just kind of took the plunge, quit my job, and we started our first bar in 2012. Yeah, so it's been fun and super exciting.
That's very exciting. Now, I know you've touched upon this a little bit. What would you say, like, the most exciting part of the job was for you when you were just beginning versus what it is now as a bar owner?
I would say I say this to everyone all the time, that it is, there's a bucket list everybody has. And like your bucket list, most of the people have a bar, have a cafe, write a book. There are these, whatever, go up to Kilimanjaro. So there's this list of things that you want to do in your bucket list, right? And having a bar is one of them for most of people. But I think they don't realize how crazy tough it is. It's crazy, and I think that the fact that we didn't know that, we were so naive. We were like, oh, we know the industry, we know the people, we know how it's to be done. We are hospitality people. We'll know how it'll be done, but we had no idea. Like we started the bar, and we were like, oh, craft cocktails, and we'll do this, and we were always very much in touch with the industry. So like I said, we were following Angus Winchester, we were following Gary Regan, and we were following all these big wigs of the industry. We were following what they were doing, so we knew where it's at, right? So we knew where the international scene is at. But in India, in 2012, when we said, oh, we'll start a speakeasy, it was supposed to be a bar with no signage outside. It's secret. You know the whole spiel. I don't have to give you that, but. The fact that we eventually, after 2-3 months, we had to actually put up a board outside, and we had to say this is like Cocktails and Dreams, which was because of Young Dup having a company called Cocktails and Dreams, and he was a big fan of, he's from the age of Cocktails and Dreams, and Tom Cruise came out with that movie, and we make fun of it still. We make fun of it, but the fact that we call it speakeasy, because we had to explain the concept over and over again to people that why the place is the way it is, why the drinks are the way, what is prohibition, what was the whole story about. So we had to really like almost like start from scratch, where people would ask us about I mean, just put yourself back 8 years ago. We were drinking like whiskey and water, and like maybe at best whiskey soda, and maybe a mojito. If you're mostly a girls would order cocktails. It was a very girly thing to do, to order cocktails. So we were, I mean, imagine you're still there. So we were literally like telling people that if you're ordering a whiskey water, why don't you try an old fashioned, and or a whiskey on the rocks, try an old fashioned. If you don't like it, the drink is on me, I can use a drink. So I would tell people to just be like, just take the risk on us. And I think it worked out, because the highlight of the fact was that I felt like we were doing a real ground level change, talking to people about taking a risk on drinks and just still feeling okay about it, and not because at the same time you have to understand the way the tax structure in India is. It is very expensive to drink alcohol in India. It's still like the duties are super expensive. We still pay 25% VAT on alcohol apart from the other duties. So if you really look at a bottle, there's a huge difference in the pricing of how international brands are and how international brands are in India. And we had a dearth of the brands which were never available. So there was a whole lot of challenges on the way, and still we managed to work our way around it. And I'm so glad that a year down the line, we changed people to drinking whiskey sours. Whiskey sours were looked down upon by people. We are again, like I said, like culturally, drinking egg white in a cocktail was looked down as like, oh my god, what are you doing? Like this is like almost like a shattering level of experimentation where an egg white is going into a cocktail. But it was completely normal to use that for an egg white, and we had for a whiskey sour, and we had to actually talk to people about it and say that it's fine to drink that and taste it, and if it's fine, then it'll change. And I mean, for me, the biggest highlight was the fact that we could actually reach a level where that was once upon that, but like 8 years down the line, it's still the highest number of drinks, straight drinks. We sell a lot of customized cocktails, and I think that there's been a change in the way people perceive cocktails, people perceive bartenders, people give you that respect where you deserve that, right? So it's all of that. So I think we've been able to sort of almost pave the way for a lot of us, like as an industry. So I'm just glad about that.
Sounds like you're on an accelerated track, because it was the same phenomena in the U.S. It used to be like, women drink cocktails, that's a girly thing. And then at some point it started transitioning, that I don't really see that as a perception, except for people, who are just maybe much older even, or
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was to get people to drink cocktails. I mean, I can only speak about it right now, but at that time, imagine we opened a little bar in the middle of nowhere. I say that in the middle of nowhere because literally it was in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing around us. Like there were banks, and there was a very, very shady art gallery, which like misspelled gallery also. So it was so bad. we would be like, what the hell? Like, and the only reason why we were there was because we could afford that space, because retailers, like retail prices like the real estate pricing is very, very expensive in India. To be able to pay rental is it's like high street takes away a huge amount of your monthly expenses. Like operating cost goes up really majorly, and so we had to choose a really like tiny little place in the middle of nowhere, and we were very happy that it's a speakeasy. It works well with the concept. It is a basement bar. You enter, you don't really feel what it's around you, and then suddenly you enter. We had jazz bands at that time. Yes. I mean, we still have jazz bands, and like we were trying to do a lot of things which were not done literally in the way things were done. And I think that's where I think changed. We also learned a lot along the way, because we saw that people were ready for it. People were sick and tired of these bars and what the bars were offering. I mean, I think we were primed for change, and I think people were traveling, and they were seeing that internationally there are much better bars and much better experiences. And why can't we have the same, right? And there people pay for it. It's not like they're not. So it's just about finding that right product mix, and yeah. So I think we were there at the right time.
Do you find international travelers trying to seek your bar out? Have you made it into the Lonely Planet yet? Or
No, we have been lucky like that, where we've been told that this is one of the places that we come with our friends to showcase that, to show that it's not so bad. And I mean, I don't want to sound condescending towards my own country, but sometimes you hear that all the time, where we are told this, that that this is one place where you can come and just feel like a normal person, and like still be like talking to other people, and it's all right to, that's what you do. That's why bars exist, right? Bars exist for your socializing. They are there for you to talk to other people. They're not meant to take you out in your own groups. That's a very, I don't know, I mean, India has had these nightclub formats, and formats where you would go out and there's this big lights, and you dress up and you get out in the night. So it's been a very different format for a long time. So for us to have neighborhood bars where you could just walk in, you relax, nobody's checking you out for what you're wearing, or for who you're with, or which car you drove in, and I think that itself was a radical change for us. We had free parking, and I still tell people that, guys, like, we have free parking. Why would you go to any other bar? So
cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to touch a little bit more about, I know you've talked about this earlier on, but just, again, it wasn't too long ago that it was illegal for women to bartend. And if I'm not mistaken, the laws in New Delhi only changed in 2010. That's 11 years ago now. Could you speak about, like, your experience in detail about how it was for you to bartend during such a changing time, and also like what advice would you give? I know I've heard you in an interview talking about like some of the progress and innovations that your bar is working on creating, like programs for other women bartenders. So I'd love to hear like more of that experience as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a topic which is really, really close to my heart, obviously. But the fact that I mean, I didn't get an opportunity to bartend professionally anywhere, and I have always felt that this is something that I've I mean, I'm still envious of people who can get to do that, because now I feel that I have taken a different path with when work is concerned, where how you're managing your business side of things more than you can get to the bar. I mean, there's a clear cut almost job description here, where when you're bartending, you have a certain set number of things you need to do, and then where I am right now, it's not easy for me to get into the bar and start making drinks, and you have to understand the format in which we exist is also pretty large. Like, we don't have we are like both our bars are almost the first bar that we opened is about almost to the seating of 60-65 people. That's a large bar, but the second bar is almost 90 people. So that is where your space exists in terms of managing people, managing reservations, managing hazar, whatever 100,000 back-end things that you're managing at all times. So you actually don't get to go in the bar, and I didn't get that opportunity because of the legality of it. I tried really hard, like I told you earlier, that I wanted to bartend, and I was almost like I was misinformed, where I didn't really find out also whether it's something that's that's I'm legally allowed to do, because I was bartending as a freelancer, and I didn't know that at that time. I got to know it later when I graduated, and then I started looking for a job, and I just couldn't. In fact, I thought maybe if I become a bar manager, I'll learn then. I'll go the reverse process, where if somebody hires me as a bar manager, maybe I'll then learn bartending. I can also do the other things and still get into the bar, but there was no way around it. So and I figured that, and I'm really just glad that somehow in 2010 the law has changed. while the law has changed, it's still really, really intricate and it's still really, really complicated in the sense that security and safety is still a very big concern in India with women going out. Like, that's how our job is. It's late nights, it's erratic hours, it's at a space where, it's perceived to be not so safe for women. And India has always perceived alcohol. So alcohol, you have to understand the back end of it has always been a dark market for India. So we have always existed with that taboo that drinking is bad and alcohol is bad, and if you're a girl you're drinking, then then you must be easy, or so all of those things come with your perception of drinking. So I mean, it's always been a heavy baggage for anyone to carry. And apart from the fact that bartending was always looked down upon as well. I mean, I don't want to really sugarcoat it, but it was always looked at like it's a waiter behind the bar, and that's how you're treated. Like literally, you're a nobody, and you would be just. I mean, that is how we are in terms of culturally also look like we have a servant culture which exists even now. Like you people are serving you. So I mean, there's a huge class divide as well, and so that sort of has had a huge impact on actually people getting into bartending, even men for that matter, who are like who are from backgrounds where they would like to pursue it as a career. A lot of them get into it because they just think that okay, this is something I can make money in, but they're not necessarily getting into it because they're passionate about it or they want to know more about it. But like I said, like it's changing in a very like small little minuscule way, but it is changing, and I think we're all making that effort where we're just trying to make bartending and make it it's a serious profession, and look at it like that as a serious profession. And if you are there, then there's enough opportunities out there for you now versus how it was say 10 years ago. And as a girl, I didn't have any opportunities, and finally somewhere I worked with liquor companies, I worked with different other marketing and sales and all these roles, and then finally I got into opening my own bar. But that is not necessarily now. Women don't have to take that path, right? Now things should be easier for them, because we are in a much better space where people do recognize the fact that it's not about men or women. It's not about gender, right? It's a very gender neutral role. It's bartending at the end of it. I mean, being a male or female shouldn't change how you perform behind the bar. And I think finally now people are recognizing that, and we are working on it. I'm working on a project with a fellow beverage writer. She is also a very well-known consultant. So we are both working on a project where we're working on actually getting more women into the industry and also promoting the women who are in the industry. So what are the 4 or 5 pillars? And we realized one of the biggest gaps that we have is education itself. So we've tied up with a lot of bartending schools. We are trying to tie up with at the same time trying to get some mentors which who are already there in the industry, somewhat established, where they can actually show them it's a lot about networking. It's a lot about knowing other people. Now social media is such an important tool, and how to use that to enhance your profile, to be noticed, promote your bars like that. So we are working on a bunch of different options focused on women. So, and hopefully like we get some support from the industry, and now I think India is primed, like I'm telling you, that is recognizing the fact that it's high time that we all sort of help that get noticed as well. So I mean, we do have some girls who are out there. I would like to see many more. So yeah.
Fabulous. Now, speaking of perception, there's quite a big difference between the perception of drinking itself in the north part and the south part of the country as well. Could you talk to us about these cultural differences, and again, if these are changing with the times?
Yeah. No, so more than the north and the south, there's a huge difference between the metros and the non-metros. You have to understand that India is super diverse. Like we have 29 states. Every state has its own liquor policy, excise policy, and it's crazy difficult if to even launch a brand in India, to actually run multiple bars in India in different states, because every almost every state will have its own rules and regulations and fees, and you have to maneuver that. You have to work with the bureaucracy of all of this. It's almost tiring to no end, and hence the north and the south difference comes from a background of the cultural, culturally how different we are from north south, and it's just not just north south; it's also east and west. So across the board, we are a very super diverse country. But more than the north and south, the difference is now in actually in the cities and the non-cities, which is like the interiors of the country, which are the smaller towns, where it's still huge taboo for women to drink, let alone bartend or work in a bar. Like that is way far off right now. But even they don't even go to bars to drink themselves as guests. So we have to reach there to actually reach to the next step, and so there's a big difference. So like where we are in a big city, metropolis, where people are diverse and people are from all over the world and the country as well. So it's far more acceptable and all of that. Smaller towns, of course, it's far more difficult. And north and south has always been different. That as such, like we've always had very different sort of way of being as well. North Indians are known to be louder, known to be a little more flamboyant, little more like out there. At the same time, they're very almost very almost like tied to their cultural values. Sometimes those values can also be wrong. I mean, they're not necessarily, just because I'm using the word values doesn't mean they're always right. Sometimes they've been passed along in the wrong context as well. For example, forever we were told that women shouldn't be working, or women shouldn't be going out after 8 o'clock in the night, or whatever, things like that. I mean, these are your values, but not necessarily the right ones. So now I think the generation which is coming up, which is getting to go out, which is getting to work with multicultural people, have realized that these are all not necessarily things that they want to pass on to their children, which I'm happy about. So things have to come to a stop. So I think culturally also things are kind of catching up, and more or less now, if you get to travel north or south, but if you get to a city, more or less Delhi is as good or bad as Bombay, and Bombay is as good or bad as a Bangalore. So these are all big cities where the most action is in terms of bars and bar industry as such. Yeah.
Right. And then what about local spirits, such as whiskeys, which are probably one of your largest per value markets in the world? How much of domestic versus international sourced products do you use in your bars, and how do the local laws governing affect those choices?
So our endeavor has always been to promote local as much as we can. Of course, it also saves us money. It's not just about sustainability; it's also about being business conscious. But at the same time, quality has always been a question for us. Like, for example, very lately, we are in India right now are almost going through a mini craft beverage sort of revolution, I would say. So we've had almost like 6 to 7 gins which have launched. We've had some rums which have launched, and now new rums are coming into our country. So, and now a lot of international brands are showing a lot of interest in coming into the country, which is exciting. Like a lot of Asian brands want to enter, which also goes on to show that there is a real potential for these brands. And we've also been primarily almost pushing the whole agenda ourselves as well. So we've been working with a lot of local brands, helping them in whichever way we can, in terms of bars, in terms of visibility, in terms of listings, or very basic stuff, or even ambassadorship, or just simply going all out and promoting them. And I think that it's very important for us to do that right now, because if we get into these silos of not being able to promote each other, then I think for the longer run it'll work in our own, it won't work in our favor as well. So we have realized that, and we are now working with a lot of local brands, and now I get to I'm really happy to say that now local brands are also realizing the whole cocktail, like the whole quality conversation as well. It's not just about the pricing; it's about the quality as well, right? So we're talking about two things together. And yeah, I mean now you see a lot of craft beers which have entered the market, which is superb. And this wasn't so almost 8-9 years ago there was no such craft beer that existed, and now there are more than 15-20 craft beers that have come out, and they're actually doing well. And it's nice to see that. I mean, it's still really really tiny versus the Western world. But having said that, I think it's like I said, it's the baby steps that we are taking as a country towards something which is a larger perspective, which we feel is very positive.
Great. And so, what are some of your favorite local spirits?
Oh, I love. I love a lot of gyms that have come out recently, which they have done really, like, they're trying to really think out of the box. And gin, I think, as a category is exciting itself. It's a very perception. Do what you want to do. Not very. It's not. I mean, it's not so in the box kind of a spirit where a whiskey has a certain standard number of years to be aged and all of that. Even drums do, but here it's a very open box situation. So in that sense, there's some really exciting gins, like recently there's a gin called Hapusa, which is really good. It's made from the hills of Darjeeling. It's their juniper comes from there, and their water comes from there. So it's exciting what they're doing. I mean, I like their story for sure. Then there's this really nice single malt Paul John, which is made in Goa. These guys are really, like, I can see the heart is in the right place. I mean, the way they're doing things. Of course, you all must have heard about Amrut and other brands, maybe international whiskies, which are doing very well as well. So yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of really good. I love White Rhino, which is a really nice locally brewed beer, which is a craft beer. Then there's another beer called Kati Patang. So they're really nice brands that have. I mean, they have I think craft is that, right? So it's about the story, it's about the heritage. They're showcasing that. I mean, they're there for the right reason. And yeah, I mean, that's why I think they're doing well as well.
Do you think any of these brands would ever branch out internationally?
I think some of them have already. 2-3 of them have already. Like Stranger and Sons is already existing in the Asian world. I think they've already launched in London as well. There's some of the gins which are already there. Even the beers have. So I think sooner or later, if they are quality conscious and they will do the right things, I think it's about knowing your way into the market, and I think they all know that. And I think, yeah, why not? I mean, recently India just saw the launch of Terai, which has been done by Proof and Co. Guys, Paul Gavey, and they have all helped bring that brand into India, which is exciting because never ever has that happened where an international company has helped launch a brand in India. And I think, and that shows in the packaging, that shows in the story, that there's a quality which you can make out from the way they have almost created that brand. So it's exciting.
Very exciting. So sustainability is a topic that's very dear to me personally. And I actually heard that once you were just opening Sidecar, you had already woven in plans to for sustainability into the bar concept. What are some of your initiatives?
So, wow, there are lots of them, but I mean, just to give you some of the main things that we've done, like, these are the learnings that we had from our first bar at Speakeasy. So we never wasted any of our citruses. So we were using a lot of our citrus in tinctures and in our infusions, but then we started making our own bitters. And then we realized that this is something, and this was a huge gap in the market where there are no bitters in India. There's only Angustra and that's it. So you won't be able to get any other bitters if you want it also. So we would ask our friends, and if you all ever coming to India, please carry bitters for us. So that is how it always worked. Friends and family, or if we traveled, we carried bitters back from wherever we traveled from. And then we realized that there's a huge opportunity here for us to create that from a lot of wasted, the peels and the waste that we had. We were using that. We started composting really early as well. So that was something that we almost did that almost as a fun project with our friends, and it almost created a lot of almost a positive effect for a lot of other people. And same thing we did with our steel straws. We let go of the plastic straws in about, I don't know what, 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time, I think nobody was really, so there was this hashtag called Refuse the Straw, and we started following that, and we started looking for solutions on what to do. So we had options of bamboo and steel and a lot of other options. We finally ended up with a really good sustainable brand, and they created the straws for us. And then when we posted about it, I think it was almost an amazing thing that so many people reached out to us for the suppliers and to find out where are we getting these from, because I think everyone was somewhat agreeing to the fact that they need to let go of the straw, but they didn't know how to. It was a huge issue, and I think it was about taking that step, and that I think really made a huge difference back then. We could see the real change in a lot of restaurateurs and the way they were talking. What else? We don't make it. I mean, there are lots of these tiny steps, like we don't use any of our store and pour bottles. We use all our reusable. We recycle all our glass bottles. We are reusing all our. We are recycling all our waste, of course. But other than that, what else are we doing? So we've hosted a bunch of eco meets, which is exciting. So this is something that we do internally as a team, where we host a sustainable brand to come and talk to all of us as an industry. So this is something that Sidecar started doing 2 years ago, and we hosted a bunch of people to actually sign this pact, where we said that, okay, let's all give our waste to this particular company, and and in the market where there are 40 restaurants and bars, we could actually come together and do something like that. And I think that in itself was a dialogue that started, where I think everybody took notice to the fact that I just say that initiative was taken, and I think then everybody kind of also agreed to that initiative. So it was nice to see that. And then we hosted two other eco meets as well, with multiple sustainable brands who were doing exciting things with the restaurant industry, closely working with the restaurant industry. So like our packaging is all eco-friendly, so none of it is plastic, everything is 100%, biodegradable. So, and we work with those brands as well to actually send our kitchen waste to them. So small little things. I mean, and I feel that sustainability is all about that. It's very overwhelming if you start thinking about all your plastic waste and all your daily wastage of energy and all of that. But I just sometimes feel that it's so much about the tiny little steps that you can take as the sort of decision maker, or as someone who's a stakeholder in any form, and you say, okay, I will do this, and will this, it's just about that. It's about just kind of recognizing that step, and I don't feel it's like you need to change the world one day and start living in some other place.
Agreed. Yes, I think it's the small steps that make the
it's overwhelming. It can be really overwhelming. So you don't need to get so don't beat yourself down for wasting things so much.
Absolutely.
Is there any legislation about bars separating from restaurants, or is food able to be served on the premises?
No, there's no such legislation. So we fall under restaurants and bars as a category. So we don't have a separate category as bars. Hence, a whole lot of problems that have happened recently with COVID also have adversely affected us, because for us to be bars and to be able to say do home delivery didn't really make any difference to us, because we have a food menu, because we do serve food, but that's never been our forte, or we never bothered to think about feeding people as such, like as a restaurant would. And nor were we into a delivery model. We didn't really care much about delivery as well. So I think it's been a bit of an issue where bars were almost ignored for a long time, where we almost fall into the same category as restaurants, and I think they don't realize, legislation wise for sure, they don't realize how different we are. I wish they knew.
The other question we had as a group was about some of the unique local produce and culinary influences that you might bring to the cocktails at your bar.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how. I mean, like I said, I mean, India is so diverse. It's like the, I don't even know, like it's the world is your oyster. So you can actually make things as diverse as you want to be. I mean, as what your taste palette pleases. For example, we don't use sugar. We use a lot of something called palm sugar, which comes out of palm, the trees. It's called Nolan Good. It's a jaggery. It's kind of a jaggery, and we use that as a sugar substitute, and that gives a really different, very very caramelly, smoky feel to the drink, which I think normal sugar wouldn't. So very very simple. And then we use something like a Himalayan salt, for example, our salt, the pink salt, which comes out. Which is really really different from a normal regular sea salt, right? So this is again something which is very very unique to the flavor, and we know these flavors also because cuisine wise we've grown up with them, a lot of them. So we know them so closely that we can easily interpret it into cocktails as well. I mean, it's very very closely related, right? So what we do with our food, we can totally interpret it into our drinks. It's about almost understanding like the way a chef understands their ingredients. I mean, so does a bartender. So it's super varied. I mean, where do I start? Which part of the state are you interested in? And then I can tell you.
Well, what about something that might be surprising for someone in America? Say, oh, I never thought about incorporating that.
So we very recently incorporated camphor. Do you know anything about camphor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool.
So we recently incorporated camphor into a mint julep. So this was a mint julep, is like a mint julep, and in that we have instead of so we've actually incorporated camphor in that. So and when you burn that, it's edible camphor, of course. It's not the I don't know how. Do you know the flavor of camphor? I don't know how much do you know about that?
Yeah, I've had it before. So is this do you have to look specifically for like, well, how'd you obtain it? Like a food grade, or is this something in the markets? Or?
No, it is food grade. It's edible. Yes, it's food grade. You have to go to the edible shopping corner only.
Yeah.
Don't go to the. So it's camphor is typically used in India for rituals. It's used as a cleansing ritual. So when you go to a lot of these temples and you go to religious places, you would go and see this smoke coming out of things, and it smells. It's intensely medicinal and yet cleansing. So it has cleansing powers, and that's what camphor is. And camphor that's where it goes back to. And we've used it in its edible form in the cocktail, and we've actually interpreted it in a mint julep, and with the mint leaves and the camphor, and there's kaffir lime in it. Actually, there's no mint julep. Sorry, there's no mint leaves. There's kaffir lime and camphor in that cocktail. So it really takes you by surprise. I was very very surprised with that combination because I never thought of ever in my life eating it or ingesting camphor. So for me that was super exciting. Then I mean a whole lot of what other ingredients I'm surprised. Of course, the tamarind, the curry leaves, the jaggery. A lot of that I'm sure you've seen yourself as well. So yeah, we've been
yeah. I'm sorry. In Southeast Florida, we have a lot of interesting things like that too. So I'm always working again with tamarind, working with passion fruit, working anything I could get a hold of, frankincense, myrrh, even spices, and anything. Just see what it tastes like.
So we have something like we're brewing our own millet. So this is a drink which comes from the northeast of India. You said you traveled to Calcutta, so if you were to go up further east, there's something called tongba that they make, which is with millet, and you ferment millet for 3 days, and it comes out. It's a really really low ABV, almost 1 to 2% alcohol, kind of almost a liquidy white thing that comes out, which is like fermented, almost like a fermented brew, and we've used that in a drink, which is exciting because we tried to marry that with a rum, and it's got this really nice, potent, and yet almost very very familiar tasting thing. It's got a little bit of umaminess. I don't know where that comes from. That comes from, I think, the fermenting of the millet and the. So it's exciting. I mean, I would never think to use something like that, but then we have, and it's exciting. So yeah, I mean, we take a lot of our almost inspiration from our eating and drinking habits as well, right? So we go back, we use a lot of tea in our drinks. We've now been using a lot of coffee as well, because down south in southern India, there's a lot of coffee, and coffee is huge in South India, and we've so far not been using that much coffee, but now recently we've discovered a lot of, so there's some barrel aged coffee, almost like the coffee beans are barrel aged in a whiskey barrel, and the way they come out, it's a completely different vibe to that coffee bean. So it suddenly got this, it's a used whiskey barrel, so it's already got that really nice spirity feeling. So it's a lovely woody and coffee combination. So again, like, things are like, yeah, going wacky, a little wacky.
Well, that's wacky is fun. That's the uniqueness is always what interests me.
Yeah.
What about in?
I think that's what we live for as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. What about in your bitters and incorporating tea in your bitters, or any interesting ingredients?
No, we do something called we've been doing ginger and the classic flavors, of course, and we do pepper. Pepper is big in India, so pepper is a huge part of our almost the spice route. So we use a lot of basil, holy basil. So we've also incorporated holy basil into our combination. So holy basil has always been the basil which actually is used in every household. You'll see holy basil, because it's actually not the basil that you use otherwise for cooking, but this is a basil that is actually far more, almost sharper and mintier than the other one. So it's got a sharper nose, and it's got a bite, a bitterness to it, which the regular basil doesn't. So we've been using that. We of course used a lot of cinnamon, and the usual suspects are the spices that we go for mostly, and try to experiment with that. Tea, of course, there's a huge number of tea infusions and tea things that we do. We've been using pine wood smoked tea, which is exciting. So a friend of ours makes tea up in the hills, and she sends us regularly. She sends us new things that she is doing up there, and we are trying to make things work with it. And so a lot of so she's actually smoking her tea with pine wood, and if you do that, I promise you, it's the most amazing flavor of tea. And I mean, I have that as a regular, like my just that, like, regular tea as well. It's amazing. It's super yum.
Yes, I just had to pull up the photo that you probably can't see that, but that you posted just today of the cocktail, Summer and Smoke, where you talk about the smoking of the pine wood tea. Yes, so they're very very cool.
Yeah. So that's again, like, I think taste wise, India, like I think we've been blessed with the diversity, with the seasons. We have a huge number of, from fruits to from fruits to spices to, we have a whole lot on offer actually. So I think we realize that, even our own taste palette is also pretty diverse, and it's really intense. So Indians like intense cocktails with like super big on flavors, kind of, I'm sure you've all had Indian food, and Indian food is that, like, it's out there, it's in your face, it's anything but subtle. So that is how our cocktails also almost compete, where it's not necessary. We are trying to actually tone it down a little bit, and try to calm down the cocktail scene, where we don't have to make everything so flavorful, but at the same time, make the spirit the hero, or make maybe one or two ingredients the hero. So that has also been key learning for us, that good cocktails don't need like 10 ingredients. You just need to focus on these 2-3 big good flavors that you can work on, and and make that shine, rather than the rest of, you'll confuse the guest as well as yourself, where what were you trying to go for, right? So I think that is where our learning has been in the last few years, where we were like, okay, like, we don't need to, just because you have everything in the buffet, you don't have to eat it all. So it was almost like that. Yeah.
Fascinating. Let's see. Well, I have a few just lighter questions for you, just to make things fun for the end. The first one is, what is your current go-to drink order? Like, what do you order when you go out?
So I'm really I've been really enjoying my Negronis lately, and I also love whiskey cocktails a lot. So in the middle, so I found Boulevardier to be really exciting. So in the last few year or so, I've been liking those kind of cocktails which are on the bitter side, more spirity, and still and there's a little bit of a signature move there, but not necessarily overpowering and stuff. So I like those drinks now. Yeah.
And then coffee or tea?
Tea.
And if you could have drinks with anyone, dead, alive, or fictional, who would it be, and what would you be drinking?
I recently answered that actually, so that will be good. I mean, we were talking about Jane Austen and how she was this amazing woman who actually had these women protagonists who actually shaped the world. She had the sarcasm to actually make it work, and I think she was also a huge groundbreaking influence for a lot of people. And I mean, I would love to share a drink if I ever get to share. I mean, I'm a bibliophile, like, to self-confessed, where I'm almost engrossed with reading constantly. So I think that also sort of is the person that I would like to ever, if I ever get to have a drink.
And what would you be sipping with her?
Oh, recently we just made a cocktail dedicated for her. Like, the newest menu of Sidecar is actually dedicated to the authors and playwrights of the 19th, 20th century. And if ever Jane Austen was to walk into Sidecar, we would have served her something called a beer brewer, and because she used to like brewing herself. I think I mean, it's claimed that that's what helped her write. So I mean, whatever floats your boat. Yeah. So I would love to share a good pint of beer, or maybe a beer brewer, a signature drink that we made in her honor. So why not?
Love it. And then, would you care to share any of your special skills or hobbies unrelated to the business?
Oh, wow. Special skills. I'm thinking what?
Or a hobby, something you do that when you're not working.
Something uniquely defining you.
So I'm a very outgoing, like, I mean, outdoorsy person as such. So I would any day be outside rather than indoors. So a lot of I mean, I have a 4-year-old kid as well, so I love to explore things with him. It's an exciting stage where I get to share, like, I mean, I want to give the values that we have, and I'm excited to actually share that with him. So I think that's why, I mean, I've become even more outdoorsy than I was earlier. I mean, because of the fact that, I mean, you're in nightlife, you've been in this, almost, you start your day at 3-4 in the evening, and then you finish your day much later. You don't get to see so much sun, and you don't get to see outdoors so much. I think I value that a lot more now, where, like, I value my off days, and I value the time when I have time out, where I can actually be outside and be doing things with or without. I mean, it's about getting out actually and doing new things and exploring. So any day, like recently I found a rock climbing institute, so we signed up for it, and like we're doing things. So it's just about just putting yourself out there. And I think as an industry, I feel that we are so boxed in with that. It's a lifestyle which can also be very negative, which I've seen, where you can get into that cycle of getting late, not eating properly, not taking care of your health, physical health, mental health. So, and I think that that's somewhere, I mean, I don't mean to sound preachy, but that is something that is a personal experience where I felt that, this is something that was not exactly the best way to lead your life. And, and I think it's in your hands to change that as well. I mean, you have to take that call. So now this is again something that a few years back that I decided to make that change.
Rob has a question.
Yeah, I'm so impressed. You've accomplished a lot, and you've become this great role model for women. I have a two-part question because it's blown away that in 2010, up until then, women weren't allowed to bartend there. What obstacles have you had, and how did you overcome them, being a woman opposed to a male bartender? And more importantly, to follow up with that, what advice would you give to women in our industry that feel frustrated with their progress where males seem to dominate it and move further faster?
So, I mean, just like any other industry, it's a known fact that majority of our workforce, I mean, I'm talking about Indian context right now, majority of our workforce is male dominated. Most of the industries are like that and shaped like that. It's even doubly hard for us because of the timing, because of the restrictions that we have, because of the fact that it's already existing in a space where bartending was never looked upon as a good job, as a positive industry, all of that. And so, I mean, my obstacles were exactly that. So I could never get that approval from a lot of people, even internally, to say that, I spoke to my family where they would be like, why would you want to bartend if you can become a manager? Or why would you want to, it's almost looked down upon as you're going down in the ladder rather than going up in the ladder. You are going to earn lesser than what you would earn as a manager. So why would you want to do that? And I think it took me a while to figure that out, where I think I had to pave my own way, where I wasn't allowed to bartend. It wasn't legal. I couldn't pursue it as a career. So it was a dead end for me. And then I moved to another associated industry. And then finally I sort of, I ended up in the bar industry, but that was the way I paved the way. But I feel that now things are better, and now things can be managed in a much more like organized way, where it is legal. You can apply in bars. So I would say, firstly, get your house in order, get your education right, do your courses seriously. If you are interested, why don't you try your hand doing a part time or a little bit of a 3 to 4 months gig at one of the bars and restaurants, and then see if this is the lifestyle that you want to take. Because straight away jumping into it without knowing what's in it, and for thinking that it's a lot of people actually in India at least initially perceive this as a very glamorous industry, like they'll get to see the the big wigs and all of that, which is so not true. It's sheer hard work. It's a lot of hours. It's crazy amount of hard work, and you cannot almost discount that. You have to have the knowledge and the hard work to go forward. And I would say that because now the world is a lot more open, where people are ready to talk to each other, people are, it's really simple to get in touch with people who you feel, are people you would like to work with or you would like to hear more of. You can actually directly get in touch with as well. Like it was so simple for Jules. She just DM'd me, and here we are, like, chatting. So so it's a really small world, right, for all of us. So we have to be open about that. I mean, that's the reality of it. So you don't necessarily need an introduction. You can actually talk about yourself. So the industry is like that. So for me, I always tell a lot of younger girls and women who want to get into the industry to firstly realize, or at least it has to come from within first, to say that, okay, I want to be in this industry. This is hospitality industry is my thing. And if you do recognize that, and if you feel that, in the initial few months that you want to give it and see how it's going for you, and then if you start feeling that, okay, this is something that I love doing, and then you can pursue that with, maybe doing a bartending course, or going to a hospitality management program, or, getting in touch with the right bars, bartenders, bar owners. It's now far easier for you to actually reach out rather than what it was earlier. And I would say that keep your doors open and keep your options open all the time. And I mean, things change when you are open to ideas, right? I mean, the day you are not, then there's absolutely no point to it. So yeah.
Thank you. I think Annie has a question.
Annie, did you want to ask the question, or should I ask the question for you? I don't know what.
I can ask. That's fine. I'll turn my camera on so I don't seem like a nut. I apologize if I look sort of like a homeless person.
Annie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi guys. So I'm a fellow woman bar owner, and so I appreciate all of your information. And I was saying to Jeff that I thought we had challenges here, but it seems like you guys have us absolutely well beat. So kudos for all you've gotten done. I was just curious in your area, do you guys leverage? So in the U.S. we can't pay to play, right? But we do leverage brand relationships a lot for, even if it's sort of like, obviously they can't pay for menu placement, but well placement and things like that. We sort of leverage those relationships for promotional support and different things like that. And I was wondering if you guys also tend to leverage brand relationships.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. I mean, we have been working with brands for a while. We also work with a lot of brand programs, advocacy, trainings, consulting, new brand promotions, new brand entries constantly. So this is something that, in fact, earlier on I was telling these guys that we've done more cocktail workshops with corporates and with brands, and actually almost been able to survive this time because we kind of almost worked with them. We won a lot of things, and I'm super grateful for the fact that we have an industry which almost came together when the government gave up on us far earlier. And I mean, not that they were ever there with us, but now they were now it was even worse. So for us, the fact that establishment doesn't look at you as a positive industry, doesn't make any policies for you, or gives you any tax rebate. Yeah, so I mean, the only people who are actually doing good for you is the brands.
Right.
So I would say they are the only people who are good.
Hey, liquor brands. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, your story is really inspirational. Thanks for taking the time. It's really.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you.
I'm impressed, especially about the short period of time that you've evolved. You're talking about 10 years. Is that about it? I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I've seen a lot of what you're saying happen in the U.S., but over decades. So, I mean, how often do you find yourself in the position where people who might consider themselves traditional come in and confront you? Like that. I can't imagine that the people who saw things the old way are just like, oh, okay, that's fine.
No, I get that all the time. I mean, I've been in meetings where I've had no eye contact with people, and you'll be like, speak to me. Like, I mean, there's a whole gender play here, which is going on. Of course, it's a twofold street here where it's ageism as well as sexism at the same time. So where you're sitting in front of people would look at you. I mean, it's really funny. Like, we laugh about it now, but when we started our bar, my business partner is from the northeast of India, so he doesn't look. He looks almost Oriental, right? So he looks like a Chinese and a Japanese person. Like he's Oriental looking. So a lot. I mean, and that is how diverse India is. And when we went initially for meetings, and we would go to meet to get the licenses. Now, just for you all to understand, I don't know if you'll understand this, but to get a liquor license in India, you need almost 20-25 permits. That is more than a gun license in India, right? I mean, it's much easier for you to get a gun license. But for us, it's a tough one still, and the fact that it's so difficult. So we had to go to all of these people and speak to them. They would be like, okay, here is a guy who doesn't look like an Indian guy, and here's a girl who's like, you don't know where she's from.
Yeah.
One, it's a girl. Yeah. So and I would dress up appropriately for these meetings, which was told to me that make sure that you're covered head to toe, and you're looking looking the part and all of that. So, I would do all those things, like, and no one would look at me. No one would like even now, like there are times I'm sitting in the meeting and it's like I'm getting ignored, and I'll be like, like I can't believe it's still happening. It still happens, and the fact that we have to voice it. Now I've realized the difference between back then, me 10 years ago, 8 years ago, was that I would not speak. I would just speak in my own circle and with my own people. Now I think I've found that voice a lot more. Like I'm a lot more confident about talking about it. So journey has been more or less like, women have these challenges, I feel, across the board, across industries, and I don't think so it's specific to only our industry, because I think they would have behaved the same way if it was a restaurant owner or any other, or a truck driver. I don't know, they would have looked at the same way at a girl if it was a girl. So I've got these questions so many times where they think that my business partner is either my father or my husband. It's as patriarchal as it gets, right? They cannot believe the fact that I am on my own. I have a father and I have a husband, but they are not my business partners. I have another business partner who I'm not related to. So this is just like shockingly and I get this. I've got this where they'll be like, where is your husband? And I'm like, what? Where is my husband? And my husband is home. Where will he be? So and then I'll be like, yeah, but I'm a new mom and he's
at my bar.
And he's at home and he's with the baby and I'm here. So it's this whole, I'm sometimes very surprised by these people, because a lot of them are very well traveled. They are themselves corporate senior people who are in that system, who know the entire bit. But it's called unconscious bias, right? So it's there in you, but it comes out naturally, but you don't really realize that it's there, right? It's how we unconsciously almost judge people basis their appearance or gender and all of that. So I've had that for a long time, and I think now I just have started voicing it. The difference is just that and I now talk about it, and earlier I didn't. I was like, it's too political or whatever. I didn't care much. So
it happens here. It happens here too. I can't tell you how many times they've thought my male host is the owner, and they assume my female business partner then has to be my life partner also. So that's the only possible way two women can do something. And then obviously my husband really owns the bar, as does her husband. We just work there.
And I always thought it's an Asian thing, honestly. I always thought that, they always assume that the husband is backing the business and the father is the loaded one. So it's a perceived rich Asian vibe that, they assume that. So it's and I'll be like, no, they didn't give me anything.
Yes, no, I have a husband and he has his own business. He comes here to drink.
Yeah. No, so we've had that. Worst of all is that, imagine my business partner, poor thing, he's from the Northeast. He has his own racism to deal with because he looks like an Oriental. And I look like, I'm a girl. So basically, we both have our own stuff to deal with.
My business partner is Asian, so we've got it all too.
So we laugh about the fact that we have our own shit to deal with. Sorry, excuse my French.
It's fair.
Do we have any more questions?
I have tons, but they would take too long. Better served over drinks sometimes when I visit.
Never let Jeff ask all of his questions.
No, it will take too long.
Well, Minakshi, it's been a pleasure. Your story is very inspiring and very insightful interview. Thank you so much for spending the time. I know it's evening time for you, probably close to 9:30 or so at your time.
Yeah, it's almost going to be 11, but that's all right. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much. My last question to you is, if you had the one magic power to change one thing in the drinks industry, what would it be?
Oh God, I don't know that. That's too much to think right now.
No laws.
You have the power.
I would definitely like the Indian bar industry to be far more open. I mean, we need to. This is so long. I mean, I have so many things I'd like to change. So, I mean, the most important thing I would like to say is that I want more hospitality people to start getting into the business, and I think that in itself is a huge issue for us, because a lot of people who own bars in India or run restaurants in India are not restaurateurs or hoteliers, because they are people who are investors. Now, investors would always be chasing numbers, right? And they would be the first to let go of their employees. They'll be the first to shut venues, and for them, it's a really clear-cut business deal, right? People like us will be like, we'll work it through, we'll work here, we'll work there, we'll do this. But this is all I do. I don't have another business. I don't have another, 100 investments. So India has traditionally existed like that. And, hence the quality issue, hence a lot of issues in the way food and drinks are perceived and served. I would like to see more bartenders running bars, and, chefs running restaurants, and claiming their space under the sun, because they have worked hard enough to come this far. And I'm 100% sure that will change. It's happening as we speak. I mean, we see now places and venues getting invested in, even investors taking a back seat and giving the partnership to the people who know how to run the business. So it's exciting to see that. And in the future, I would love to see a lot more. And then there are 100 other things I'd like to change as well. So
well, you're definitely doing a great job paving the way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been such an honor, and I had such a pleasure. It's just like talking to friends, and I think, I didn't know how time passed. This was good fun.
Yeah, if you definitely come down in this region, look us up and we'll show you around. And if you ever get to something like Tales of the Cocktail in New Orleans, whenever that starts up again.
I will. Absolutely. It's been in my bucket list for the longest time. In fact, we were planning to, Yagdub, my business partner, he was at Tales, I think, a few years ago. He was some brand ambassador, something. I don't know what they call them. But
we need to do a Tales on the Road in Delhi. That would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
India saw its first cocktail week last year, and it was super exciting. First time ever we got to get drinking outdoors. I think that in itself was a big thing.
Come to New Orleans. We got plenty of that there.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Not.